All right, welcome back, everybody. If this is your first time joining us, like if you've come from Snackless's community, as we can see a couple people in the live chat, what this series is called PIER, or Positivity and Innovation for Edmonton's Reopening. What we've kind of been talking about for this series for the past 14 weeks has been all different types of industry, how COVID has affected absolutely every industry, and some of the cool and innovative things that people have been working on in order to improve themselves, improve their businesses, and improve their community. So one of the things that we wanted to keep here at Homestead is that positive outlook and all of the amazing innovations that people have come with throughout this entire problem and will continue with after it. So we're very excited to have a very fun guest today from a very different industry that we haven't talked to before. Before I introduce her, I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. So if you've never heard this before because you're not from our city or from our province, this is where we just pay tribute to the Indigenous peoples whose land that we live on. So Homestead and myself honors and thanks the many First Nations on whose historical and traditional lands Edmonton was founded, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge and embrace the fact that we are on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and the traditional Métis homelands of Region 4. We acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked these territory for centuries, from First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. We do this to create awareness that we are all treaty people and to show recognition and respect for Indigenous people and the traditional territories on which we live, work, and play. We take our responsibilities with Indigenous people seriously, and together we call upon all of our collective honored traditions and spirits to work in building a great city for today and future generations. Homestead holds the values of diversity and inclusiveness very deeply, and it is within the founding of the space. This series was created with the same intentions and was started because we are a positive community. We can make it through anything, and that's something that we needed to highlight. So today, we're actually going to be talking with Snackless, who you might have heard of. She's done a lot of work in the charity field, as well as she is very well known within the Edmonton Twitch community, helping out at a lot of events and just making sure that she can always provide support, which has been absolutely amazing. This past couple months, she actually helped raise $18,000 for Make-A-Wish Alberta, but has done over $25,000 on her own. So we'll get into all of that fun soon there, but Snackless is a partnered Twitch streamer, Discord partner. She's done lots of work with a variety of different video game companies, as well as been involved in the community throughout this, and also holding down a full-time job in education during all that. So if it's not enough to have one job, she has two. So we're super honored to have her here with us today. I'm really excited to get talking about that. So welcome, Snackless.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we definitely haven't had a streamer on before. We've had a couple of influencers, bloggers, whatnot, one TikToker, but it's definitely something that I think kind of has this mystique around it, right? People are like, what does that mean? What exactly do you do?
Absolutely. I think it's not an easy title to give. When I say that I'm a teacher, everybody knows what that means. And I think even when you say you're a YouTuber, people understand, they know an umbrella of what you do. But when you say you're a streamer or you say you're on Twitch, they're like, what is that? What do you do? What does it mean?
For sure. So is there kind of like a specialty that you work in? I know I've seen you do Animal Crossing, but
That's actually an interesting question because when I first started streaming, I played Destiny, which is a first-person shooter, and that's actually the background that I came from. So I grew up playing like Nintendo and platformers and kind of fun games like that, and then I got introduced to Halo 3, and I played like 5,000 games of Halo, and it was really an interesting journey because I never played a game like that. I never played a game where you could like walk around an open world, so I'd always walk around with like my head up and backwards, and I'd be like banging into walls, and I was just absolutely horrendous. But I really fell in love with the competitive side of that, and then when I first started streaming, I was playing Destiny, and I would play Destiny nonstop all the time, PvP, so player versus player games, and they're shooters, and that's how I started streaming. And I played that for like every day on Twitch for years, for probably like 2 years. And then I started to mix in a bit of variety because I also played some fun games, but I was really, really into Destiny for a really long time. And it was a very popular game. And I really, really enjoyed it. I just fell in love with Destiny and the Destiny community online. And I got to do some really cool things with them. And then flash forward to now I kind of stream whatever I want. I do still have those first person shooter backgrounds. So I still play some Apex, some Fortnite, but I'm really enjoying some more indie sort of games. And so I've been playing Spiritfarer this past week, but I've also dabbled in like Minecraft and Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing I played for quite some time. So kind of anything that like passes my way that looks interesting or engaging for stream, I kind of mix into. So now I've got this really weird variety going on, but I'm really liking that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty awesome because I know a lot of people kind of get stuck. Like they're a Fortnite streamer, they play Fortnite, and that's all they can do.
Absolutely. So that's, in streaming, there's two sides, right? So one, when the game's hot and it's popular, it's very wise to continue streaming that. So you kind of have to play both sides. Like one, I want to play a game when it's popular, and that's important because that equals growth and that equals propelling your community forward and propelling your stream forward. But at the same time, like maybe you just want to play Among Us. Maybe you just want to like play a game with your friends for fun. So there are actually some strategies that we recommend to streamers who are trying to grow or streamers who are newer to streaming. So one of those is that you play your popular game first and then you transition. That's a really wise thing. Another thing too is to have a foundation, to build a community that's based on you, not necessarily based on the game you play. And that is difficult. It's much harder to be a variety streamer because people get used to what you do as well. They get used to what you play and they get used to the way you are when you play that game. And so diversification is the key. However, you need to do that wisely.
For sure. I think that's a really good point to make as well, because your community, they rally behind you for sure.
Yeah, they're so good.
Yeah, and it's like everybody has cute little names for theirs. I like the Snackless. I think that's a pretty A+ one for sure.
Yeah, it's really catchy, really sweet, kind of like matches my personality. And they're really the sweetest. They're truly the most generous, sweetest community, so it kind of suits them too. So
yeah, it's definitely something that not a lot of people think of if they first got started streaming.
Yeah.
Apparently studying over the word stream, which I feel like we're going to use a lot today, so I should probably get better at that one. But I don't think you ever started out being like, I'm going to make partner, I'm going to do this is going to be the whole thing. But then when you saw it picking up, did you make that conscious decision of like,
right, okay, so at the beginning I didn't know what I was doing. I actually turned on my first stream without watching a stream ever. So I don't recommend that. Don't do that. Like that's not, yeah. But my friends were like, you should try streaming, you're really, really good at video games. And I was like, well, okay. So then I literally was just like, I tried it. And then I got a lot of attention really fast. And so when that started happening, that was really exciting. But what happened is I started streaming at the start of July. And so summer was crazy, but then I went back to work. So it was like, I didn't quite know how to juggle that. And so then I kind of had to figure out like how I could stream and how I could teach at the same time and how there could be like some kind of balance. And so that took a very, very long time to figure out. So I think very shortly into streaming, a few months, and I was like, I want to eventually get to partner. And I thought I'd get there quickly. But then when I had to dial things back because I was working full time, I quickly realized that this was like going to be a journey for me. I was partner on Twitch almost exactly 2 years after I started streaming, and that's a long time. Like it took a lot of perseverance and a lot of time and a lot of consistency. And the consistency was difficult while working full time because I really had to figure out like how often I could stream and then how consistent I could actually be. So it was like quite the journey to get there.
Definitely. I mean, consistency is key with most businesses, right? So it's kind of when you change your perspective to be like, I'm going to make partner, this is going to be a business, that you kind of see that success come through. But 2 years definitely is a hustle on the side.
Yeah, it was a lot. Absolutely. And totally worth it. But yeah, it was a lot. And you have to make a conscious choice to be consistent as well. I always say to people who are starting out, I said, you should pick a schedule that suits you, that you can stick to. And if it's only 2 days a week, it's only 2 days a week. But if you say you're going to be there, then you be there, right? And if there's a change, you let your community know. It's important that you show up. Right. So you have to say, so if it's really great to be ambitious and be like, I'm going to stream every day. But if that's physically not possible, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, burnout is very real in every industry, but I can imagine burnout on camera is a little bit more dramatic than behind the scenes.
Yeah, certainly it feels that way. I think in teaching too, like I know when I have a break, and streaming doesn't really lend itself to that too, so I think you're like everything you do is live. You can't even just be like, you know what, I'm going to take a little break. There are ramifications for everything, even for filling up a glass of water. And so I think that leads people to feel like they can't leave the camera, that they always have to be live. And so, that comes with some benefits and some drawbacks. And I think one of the drawbacks there is probably a quicker path to burnout if you don't manage it well.
Yeah, so that's really interesting that you've kind of come up with a system to kind of keep your own sanity as well. And especially now in this partner world where you're not only partnered with Twitch, you're partnered with Discord. You were talking about EA as well earlier, right?
Yeah, I'm an EA game changer, and I worked with Memory Express for 2 years as well. So
yeah, so is that something that you wanted to pursue as well? When you made partner, you were like, all right, now let's look at what the other things are?
Well, I mean, I think ideally when you look at people who have like success in this area, you always see people who are off doing amazing, cool things, like when you have friends, your peers are like, they're jetting off to LA, they're going to all these places. And of course, I feel like most people would look at it and be like, that's really cool. Like, I want to do that. But I kind of just like stumbled into working with EA. Like I would go to the FemDev events. And so I met some people who worked at BioWare, and I had kind of some involvement with them. And then a lot of my friends, it's actually kind of funny because I came with a personal recommendation to join the Game Changer team from my Destiny background. And so I joined the Game Changer team through Anthem. And then I went there and literally all my friends were there. They were all my peers. And so that was like perfect mesh for me. So I started working on Anthem with them. And then very quickly, I actually jumped onto working with other games. So I worked on Apex. I've done a little bit of Sims, even though I'm not officially on their Game Changer team. So I've done some work with them there. I've also done some work on things I can't talk about. In addition to that, I also sit on a specialized council of EA Game Changers. So there's this smaller council that I sit on that I can't discuss further, but that's a really big honor to be on. And so no, none of those things, that was like my wildest dreams. Okay. Like, it was so crazy because I stumbled into being a game changer, and I would already travel quite a bit, but then suddenly I was traveling every month on top of teaching full-time, on top of streaming. And it was like so crazy, but so fun. And I just feel like it was so funny. I talk about this. I talk about like getting momentum, and getting momentum in any business is extremely difficult. I feel like it takes forever, but as soon as like you're on it and you're running, and you kind of just have to keep running, and opportunities were like flying at me. Like I remember one week in particular, I'll never forget. I taught on Monday, and then I left school at 2:30. My principal covered my class. I drove to the airport. I flew to Vancouver. I worked on a game on Tuesday, Wednesday. I left Wednesday early. I flew back to home. I taught on Thursday. I left school at 2. My principal covered my class. I flew back to Vancouver within 24 hours, and then down to LA for TwitchCon. And I was like,
Yep.
And I feel like part of the reason I got myself into these situations is because I kind of have this like philosophy in streaming and I think in building a business, and the philosophy is to always just say yes. So if somebody asks me to do something, even if I don't think it's maybe like the most valuable use of my time, or like even like something I'm super interested in, if somebody gives me an opportunity, I just say yes.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I know that could be a very busy week, but
yes.
Definitely I think seeing your embracing of like, sure, I'll do this, I'll do that. It's been very interesting in this community, especially because we do have access to BioWare being here. We have a couple other AAA studios as well. We actually have video game studios within Homestead, and it's a very small community when you get to know people. So things like YIG, FemDev, definitely everybody there knows everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like saying yes I think it's a key to success, because you never know who you'll meet. And so even if I was nervous, even if like some of the things that I've said yes to that I didn't want to do, example one was like, I've always fundraised for Extra Life every year, and I really enjoy that. And so the very first year they're like, oh, we'd like you to be like a VIP fundraiser. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. So I just sat at the VIP table, did my own thing. There was a few benefits for me, which were really important that like make my stream run well, like getting to Ethernet cable, just like like some accommodations to be successful. But then the next year they're like, oh my God, you are so amazing. You want me to be like the #1 VIP. So we're going to put you on a 2-story screen in West Edmonton Mall. And we're going to show you playing video games. And I was like, yeah, I aren't you so excited? I was like, I love it. I was like, I don't, for being a public figure, I don't actually care for a lot of attention. So I was like, okay, yeah. And so I still did it, and there was still value, and there's still like really awesome stories that come from that. But I think getting out of your comfort zone can like really open a lot of opportunities, and it's a great way to challenge yourself, even though, you know, you don't feel super comfortable all the time.
I mean, going from streaming at home where you're in this kind of controlled environment where you can feel comfortable, you have control of your background, you have control, to being 2 stories tall is very different.
In the mall.
Yep.
I was like, why?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, you know, these are some pretty cool things they happen in other places, but Edmonton kind of embraces it and runs with it. And that's something that we've kind of noticed about entrepreneurs who are from Edmonton or live in Edmonton is, you know, that big billboard we have where it says, take a risk. It's the most Edmonton thing you can do. A lot of you live this. It is just something that's within you. And as cheesy as that billboard is, it does kind of describe people from here.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think one of the cool things that I wanted to talk about was, because you've been partnered for so long, people are just kind of discovering Twitch now, as people on the internet would call them normies, right? With lockdown, a lot of people were like, what is this thing? Apparently I can watch people play video games, but I can also make money playing video games. And have you had like a lot of people just kind of confused showing up or asking you questions or seeing an influx of things?
Like, truly, I haven't. I actually haven't seen that. I feel like it's very common for people to ask me about streaming just as it is, because I think it's kind of one of those jobs where if you play video games and you love like the game industry, why wouldn't you want to mesh that together? Like, it looks very appealing, right? Because what you see on the surface is what I described seeing in my friends, right? You see people jetting off to these awesome things. You see their brand new emails. You see them signing these like contracts. You see them doing these cool things, right? And so it looks like it's the type of profession where it looks like it's amazing. But what you don't see is like me working my full-time job, literally sprinting through the airport, you know what I mean? Like writing things, you know what I mean? Like working on my laptop for teaching, like flying, you know? So I think it's always, for me, there's always been people who were seeking that opportunity. So I truly haven't seen like a major influx in that. I think that I have seen over the years an influx in people asking about Twitch. And I would say I have seen an increase in people's understanding of Twitch. So I would say that in that regard, I think like because Twitch is just growing and the names are growing and more, I feel like there's more celebrities on Twitch and, you know, so I think in that regard, I've seen that, but I haven't necessarily seen like people start to stream.
That's interesting for sure. Cause you know, with webcams being absolutely sold out for like how many weeks now, it's there's a lot of streamers who actually lost access to things that, you know, upgrading their stream, whether it was key lights or anything like that.
100%. It's really interesting because like even with the contacts that I have at like Logitech, I was like, hey, I really need something. And he was like, okay, I can put you on the list, but I literally don't know when I can help you. And I was like, okay, yeah, which is like, that's not normal for us, right? So yeah, that was a bit interesting. And I think it's interesting too, because the education side of that, like my principal came to ask me about like what headsets they should get, like what webcams they could get. And then even with like my contacts at Logitech and at Memory Express, I still couldn't even get us anything. Like I couldn't even help us. So that was interesting. And I'm not sure that that's completely related to streaming as more so it is to like just working at home. But the other thing is somebody provides you with the things you need to work at home and you could also stream and you're interested. I could also see an influx there, but I wouldn't say that that directly has related to like people in my chat or people that I know per se.
For sure. I think there was a comment that somebody made that was like, you can instantly tell which one of your coworkers streams the first day that we all did work from home because there's lights, there's backgrounds, there's
that's funny. I did have a parent ask me, they're like, they're like, do you use, like, why is your microphone, like, and I was like, I just have good quality stuff. Because I don't mesh those. I'm like, I take both of my professions very seriously, and I do not mix them. When sometimes they get mixed, but it's not by my choice. So ironically, back to that story where I was on that 2-story screen. So, the funny thing about that is that they were like, hey, on the 2-story stream, can you stream with the Stolly Champion kids? So what would you say? Of course, you're going to be like, sure, whatever you want me to do, right? So Snackless always says yes. So I'm like, sure. So I'm playing with these kids on a 2-story screen. The dad's taking the video. He sends it to his wife. She's like, is that the kindergarten teacher? I was like, what? Nope. Yep, it's me, so like as much as I try to keep those two worlds separate, they do mix ever so slightly now and then, but I feel like kind of the professional side of teaching in me helps me keep a barrier in between them.
Well, and I'm sure it also helps you with dealing with chat or some things like that.
Yes, it's like a classroom. I think the best streamers and streamers who are really close with their communities, they without knowing it are just very good at management, because they're managing shows, they're managing their mods, they're managing their normal community, you know what I mean? Like they probably just lend themselves well to that.
Well, and you do things like movie nights as well. So that's like project management is very much incorporated in what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find like I take a lot of teaching and put it into my stream. So that's something kind of unique that I do. Like I will read storybooks on stream, and like whenever I fundraise for charity, I make crafts. Like I literally go to my kindergarten cupboard, like think about what ideas I could have, bring them home, like make crafts and raffle them off for children's charity. I just like, it's because I think it's just so much of who I am.
Pretty amazing. I mean, just on your own, over $25,000 for children's charities.
Yes. Yeah. In a combination of St. Jude and the Stollery through Extra Life. And one of those events was actually a 4-hour stream for GCX, which used to be known as GuardianCon. And it was like at 6 in the morning. It was 4 hours starting at like 6 in the morning or something, just like obnoxiously early. And we raised like $10,300 in 4 hours. And it was like crazy. It was so cool. It was amazing.
Has that been something that you always kind of wanted to do with this, or did
actually
you fall into it?
Okay, funny question. It was a say yes moment. That's exactly what it was. So I saw my friends who would occasionally fundraise for St. Jude. So this was like in a year and a half into streaming. Okay, so like quite some time ago. So a year and a half into streaming, I saw Creative Twitch be like, hey, we're looking for people to fundraise for St. Jude. We have front slots open, like who's interested? And I was like, I can do that. I can do fun Christmas stuff. Okay. So I signed up. I got a front page slot. It was my first time. And I hand sculpted acorn ornaments and raffled them off for like 50 or 70 bucks a piece or something crazy like that. And then in like an hour and 45 minutes, we raised like, I don't know, we raised like $1,500 or something for my very first charity stream ever, like on the front page of Twitch. And I remember it just being like insane. And it was literally just a say yes moment. And then after that, I truly can't exactly remember the timeline, but I believe I then fundraised for, I think I fundraised for GuardianCon or something. I must have had the slot then. And then after like Make-A-Wish and like YEG Extra Life saw that, then they kind of like reached out to me about kind of joining them and doing some projects together. So I kind of stumbled into it and like the best way possible.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm just going to switch my microphone. Apparently there's some issues with it.
Yeah, it's a little quiet.
This is going to be bad because it's going to be my webcam one. But
yeah, that's okay. It's just
a little bit more audible.
Yeah, it has like a white noise kind of background to it. So it's not terrible, but pardon me?
The current one's got the little background noise?
Yeah, just a little bit, but that's okay. It's not terrible.
It's definitely my fan. Interesting. Yeah, what were you saying about Logitech reps? Might have to get you on that. But yeah, that's absolutely crazy that, you can do something so impactful and have a really big impact on not only the Edmonton community, but the whole world technically. I know with the money that got raised for Make-A-Wish, Edmonton Twitch was saying it actually went to helping a last minute wish get made.
which is so amazing. Like, and the cool thing too, like, for St. Jude, I've done a lot of fundraising for them as well. And I do, sometimes people do ask me like, well, why would you fundraise for something in the States? And I said, well, St. Jude is actually international, and they share all of their research and all of their success freely. They share it absolutely freely to everyone, and they're international. And there's nothing wrong with taking your reach and spreading it around, you know? So I think while it's important to fundraise for something local, there's nothing wrong with my community is international, you know? So like, why not pick something that resonates with everybody? And, you know, I think when when you have a chance to say yes, and you have a chance to make a difference in people's lives, you know, there's only good things that come from that. So.
Definitely. I think, like you were saying, it's international, your audience is international. And so while you have this great presence in our community, you also have a presence all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And is that something that you ever imagined that you would have?
No. I do have one other funny story. Like, I remember like years ago, maybe like several years ago, I was with my coworker, and I just got my first kindergarten job, and it was going to be my second year of teaching. I was so excited, and I was just talking to her, and I was like, Mandy, I want to change the world. I want to have an impact. I want to do something with my life. And she was like, how are you going to do that? And I was like, I have no idea. I have literally no idea, but I'm going to do it. I was like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something with what I've been given and what I have. And I don't think that I realized that I was doing it for a long time. It wasn't until very recently that I was like, oh my gosh, like I am doing something, like not only as a teacher impacting those little friends, but like, and raising the next generation and having a piece of their life and supporting them. But in addition to that, like supporting people internationally and globally, and giving them a place to feel safe, and giving them a home, and inspiring things that I believe in, like earth sustainability and recycling, just those simple things like that. And like the importance of early literacy with their kiddos, and raising money, and giving your time, and volunteering, and taking those things that my parents taught me, and those traits that I believe to be so important, and like really sowing them into people, you know, and sowing belief into people that they can do those things too, and that they can make a difference. And it really wasn't until recently that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. You know, it was when I think I went to St. Jude last year, maybe, that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is in real time, the impact that we have. And that was really, it was really humbling and very surreal. It made me very, very proud of the community that we built.
Yeah, I mean, that's so special to have, right? And is there something like within Twitch that's kind of made this, enabled it to make it be bigger, or has this all just been your hard work?
Twitch is kind of interesting because there's the features change quite rapidly. So they're always trying to give us new features and new things that work. In terms of charity fundraising, I don't think that it's super, super ingrained into them and what they do. I think it's kind of like what people do with them, if that makes sense. And so I truly feel like I don't know. I don't feel like those things come from Twitch. I do feel like there's some interesting extensions in there, and there's some things that we use that certainly help grow our stream and help engage people, but I wouldn't say that they particularly lend themselves to charity per se.
For sure. I think that's kind of a balance that you can kind of play with, right? And that's where like different organizations have tried to make it easier. I mean, we've even seen that with our 50-50 for the Oilers.
Yes.
Them trying to move online, how much trouble that's been for them.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I think people are thinking about, but not necessarily having the resources for. But with that, I'm sure that's just another challenge that you've kind of had to overcome when it comes to streaming.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a few, besides having to explain what you do every time you talk about it with anyone.
Yes.
But can you give us some insight into some more of those challenges? Because I'm sure there's been a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So like challenge one, I would say is tech. Okay. And I feel like I know my computer pretty well. So luckily I have, some people in my life who are very good with computers, more so than even me. They know how to build a PC. But I know how to run my PC and run my stream and kind of troubleshoot. But the thing is, sometimes you can know what you're doing. You can do everything right. You can follow the instructions and it won't work. or something breaks or it doesn't like, oh my good Lord, like it's incredibly frustrating, you know? And then the other thing too is then like if you update your PC, you know, streamers were always the last to update our PC. We'll not update it, because the thing is then like all your drivers are messed up, and then all of this software that we use. So for example, I use Streamlabs OBS and I love it. Okay, it works for me. It's awesome. I love it. I would recommend it. I'm very familiar with it. But then like all of your microphones are like, you have to literally redo all your stuff. I will say that Streamlabs OBS is awesome for me in terms of moving my setup, because every time I do charity events, or once I streamed from Animathon locally, which was amazing, instead of like hauling all my stuff, I could actually just like log into my Streamlabs account, which is like infinitely helpful. So I will say that there are some benefits there, but tech issues are very frustrating because you can do everything right and still have problems. And sometimes that means you can't stream or you can't work. And that is very disheartening, especially as a part-time streamer. If I say I'm going to stream on Saturday and I think I'm going to stream and I left my PC and it worked, and I come back and it doesn't work, and I can troubleshoot it well, and it's very stressful. I think for me, part-time streaming and balancing my job is also like just an enormous challenge. That's probably my biggest and most consistent challenge, because teaching is exhausting, and it's also not consistently exhausting. So in September, I hardly stream ever at all. It's like I drop off the face of the earth. And thank goodness my community, they understand that. But anybody who joined in July or August, you know, are they likely to wait a month for me to come back? They're probably not. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, you know, it's the price you pay for having another job. So that kind of consistency and being able to stream as often as I can has definitely been a challenge. And also like being okay with being a part-time streamer. Okay. Because, you know, my friends, they have amazing opportunities and they get to do all these things all the time. And I would love to stream every day. I would love nothing more than to hang out with the Snackless every day, all day. They're amazing. And so sometimes it's very hard not to compare yourself to full-time streamers. And so I often have to tell myself, you stream 2 days a week. Okay. It's amazing. You can do anything. So like 2 days a week is okay. And just being okay with that, because, you know, I always want to push myself to do more. And sometimes that's just not possible. So just like coming to terms with being a part-time streamer and that being okay, that was a really big challenge for me. And then I think the kind of growing pains on Twitch, I would say, but those are just things that everybody goes through, which is like discoverability, like the UI platform, just how Twitch functions kind of as a whole. Just like that kind of those things, that's quite difficult. And I know and that's with somebody who's like somewhat established. It's just very hard to be seen. It's very hard to grow. It's not impossible, but it requires a lot of work and some luck. That's how I always describe it. I describe growing on Twitch as like, you have to put in the time and the work, because one day an opportunity could come your way. But if you haven't put in the time and the work, you can't access that. Right? So I could have gone to those events and I could have just been like, I'm a Twitch affiliate, I just stream sometimes, and they would be like, that's so cool. You know? So I think part of that is like putting in the work so that when an opportunity comes, if an opportunity comes your way, you can say yes, you know, because if you haven't done the groundwork, you can't say yes anyways, even if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've seen a lot of that, just hustle while you can. It does sometimes lead to burnout, but every entrepreneur that we've talked to on this show so far has said they wish they'd started sooner.
Oh,
and
interesting.
That's a big part of it, right? Is you can't get these opportunities until you're putting the work in. So a lot of them are in industries where if they just started even 6 months earlier, they would have been the only one doing this.
Yeah. I can understand that. I think taking a chance has a lot of value, you know, but on that note, we were talking just before the show kind of started, and I said, you know, taking a chance is great. However, we don't take chances and be like, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be a streamer. You know, people often ask me like, should I be a streamer? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know you. Like, do you like talking to people? Do you like being on camera? I compared it to being a teacher, right? If you were like, should I be a teacher? I would be like, do you like kids? Do you have any experience? Do you want to get a degree? You know, like, I feel like, you know, because streaming is so easy to jump into, people often kind of like stumble headfirst into it without realizing that like they need a streaming PC, a camera, a microphone, lighting, a green screen. They need a graphic design artist, like, you know, they need all of these things. And while they do come in steps, it's important to recognize that like, just because it's easy to step into doesn't mean it's easy to start and get going.
Definitely. We've also seen, like I've seen in my life, some streamers who kind of jump ahead a little too far. So maybe they've got 6 consistent viewers
and they're like, I've made it. I got affiliate. This is great. And then they start producing merch right away.
Yeah.
Would you recommend maybe being a little bit more established before doing things like that?
Okay, you know, well, merch is kind of a tricky one, because here's the thing: if you have 6 people in your stream and they want to buy merch, I would make merch for them, because I'm like, well, that's kind of cute, whatever. But would I like upgrade my stream PC if I had 6 concurrent viewers? Would I be like, you know what, I think I deserve all new monitors? No. My journey from streaming, like I was not very financially stable when I first started streaming. I was streaming on a couch that someone gave to me, and it was broken, and it was on top of a 4x4, but you couldn't tell. And I was streaming off of my PlayStation with a PlayStation camera. And because we live in Alberta, when it got dark at night, I didn't have any lighting in that room. I just had a hallway light. So I'd kind of turn orange slowly as the evening went on. And I was like, and then a few weeks into streaming, about a month, maybe, I was having a lot of success. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually buy a PC. And I remember not choosing to make that decision and actually getting a used PC. So we stole a chair from the dump, and then I had a used stream PC, and it was super loud and was really embarrassing, but that's what I had a used desk. You know, I think it's the same thing in teaching, right? When I first started teaching, was I like, I'm going to spend $10,000 making the most beautiful classroom ever right now? No, it was like, for me, it was a journey, you know, and it's different for everyone. So I took those steps slowly, and with the help of my community and some friends, I slowly built what I currently have as my PC and my monitors, and I slowly upgraded all of those things. And still to this day, I'm using the same microphone, you know, and sometimes I look at it and I'm like, you know, I could really use a new mic arm, but like, I'm just going to use what I have. I just recently, like just in the past month for my birthday, I got gifted a new camera. So that was really exciting. But you don't have to have the most amazing things, you know, to get going. And it was the same thing in teaching, right? I didn't have to have like the most amazing, beautiful classroom to be a good teacher, right? You don't have to spend $5,000 to be a good streamer. If you are a good streamer, you are a good streamer, and your good quality things will come, you know? So if you consciously make good decisions and you work hard, those things will come to you. So don't ever feel like you have to jump ahead, you know? If you have something accessible to you that works that you're using, like, that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's important for every industry, because a lot of them will be like, well, you have to have this, this, and this to even get in the door someplace, especially with investors. A lot of them look at like, I got to buy this suit, I got to do this. And, you know, you do have to buy some things, right? Like 100%. But, you know, if you can get a chair from the dump, why not, right?
Yeah, it was embarrassing, but like it was part of my journey. And now it's not embarrassing. For me, now it's part of my journey. It's funny. I was like, you know what? That was where I was at in my life. And like, that's what I could afford. And it's like part of the magic of like, when I come into my office now and I look at it, and it's like, it's new and it's me, and it has my plants and has all my things and has all the things that I've like worked so hard towards them. It really truly feels like, for me, I earned it. And I think that for me is a very rewarding feeling, and it makes me feel just so blessed.
Yeah, I can imagine. And throughout all these challenges, you've been building up this community, and it's been something that obviously takes a lot of work to get to. Have you found that they've given you like a lot of support and they've kind of helped you through these things? Or
my community?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Like they do everything from like cheer me on, motivate me, like tip me financially to help me purchase new things. Like they will fly across the continent to events that I go to like help me carry my items and hand out my little Canadian snacks, and like they all have so many different talents, right? Like I've had really close friends that like they do all my graphics, and someone does my videos, and they just like offer their talents and time. And they've been just so incredibly generous with their time, their talents, with talking about our community, with showing up to our streams and just being a part of the things that we do. And I am just like endlessly grateful for them. They've just been they're so incredible in so many ways, you know, and that for me is something that I'm very proud of, and something that keeps like me as like someone who has another full-time job coming back, because, you know, not only did I create a home for them, but like they're a home for me. You know, they're somewhere that I can go on the weekend, and people who want to hear about my day that I get to talk to, who like know about my life and know about, you know, the things that I'm doing, the adventures that I go on, and they share in those excitements and those special events. And it's just been like, it's been so blissful to have such a wonderful community, and just to have And to feel so supported, you know, because support comes in so many different ways. Support comes from just like showing up. I have this other saying that I talk about in stream, and I always say this, I say the best way to support a streamer is to be there. It's just to show up. That's all you have to do. You don't have to tip them. You don't have to subscribe to them. The best way to support them is just to be there. You know, that's all you have to do. And then if you're able to, if you want to support them further, then that's amazing. And that certainly helps. But all you have to do is be there.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference for everybody's business, right? You don't necessarily have to buy, we have some people in our space who make like synthetic models of entire cities. You don't necessarily have to do all of that, but just being like retweeting them, sharing their information, shouting out when you can.
Talking about them, absolutely.
Exactly. It does such a big boost for people. It also makes them feel like they're doing something worthwhile, right?
Yes, like sewing into people. I love to sew into people. I love to hear about like what people are doing and like hear about their adventures and just like really gas up my friends and just tell them how amazing and how awesome they are. Like I love that too. When I taught kindergarten, this year I'll be teaching grade 1, but when I taught kindergarten previously, it's like, to me, it was always like having 50 new best friends. Like they're just these little mini versions of people who are so amazing, who just like you love on, and they just love you so hard back. And it's so great to have that feeling in stream as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gives you a really unique perspective coming from a teaching background, because everybody remembers their kindergarten teacher. Like it's something that stays with you, and you remember all the fun that you have, even if you don't remember absolutely everything. But coming from that, like my dad was principal for several years, and I have always said K-3, the hardest working, most impressive teachers I've ever seen. It's the amount of things that you have to teach people in a short amount of time is overwhelming. And I think people do not give K-3 teachers anywhere near enough credit. So I definitely want to let you know, like, there are some of us out there rooting for you, for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that, especially today. You know, I was saying to Madison before we hopped on here that I literally drove to my school, like worked for 3 hours, like ran back here, got ready, sat down, you know, like.
Yeah, like I mean, you're busting your hump for them, but you're also doing it for you on the side as well. And it's something that you can see that you're truly passionate about both things. And so when you have a chance to kind of combine them, like no wonder you would be so passionate about something like St. Jude or Extra Life.
Absolutely. Like supporting those little friends, because like I always think like, you know, what if that was my student? Like, what if that was my little buddy? And like, wouldn't I want like someone to stand up for them and like support them and, you know, put themselves out there for them? You know, like a little discomfort for me is like nothing. And a little embarrassment in charity events is nothing for someone who's battling for their life.
Definitely. I mean, we saw that we have Bex in the chat as well. Got covered in pie for children. So you never
absolutely.
know.
I like put on a fish head recently that was like the most stinky, stanky thing I've never smelled something so revolting. I truly, St. Jude sent us this box of things, and I put the fish head on, and I was like, and I was like swimming around in this, because like, and it's embarrassing, and it was the stinky, stankiest thing I have ever smelled. And it was for the kids, you know. And when you're doing something for someone else, or you're doing something you're passionate about, you just feel differently. You know, you're willing to like, I did a 3D shape wrap in front of like 3,000 people that I do for kindergarten. It was like incredibly embarrassing. And they still talk about it to this day. They loved it. They loved every second of it. And I've never been so embarrassed before in my whole life. I was so embarrassed. I was so sweaty and so embarrassed. But, you know, it's like the things that you would do for the people that you love, and the causes that you love.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing, right? It's something that people are like, oh yeah, I can play video games, I can get super famous, I can fly to LA and do all this stuff, but you can also do so much good. And I know I have a few friends who are speedrunners who are just dying every time to do something. They're like, you know, with SGDQ being online this year, they're like, I can't go. Have you got anything for me? And it's one of those things where you want to kind of show people things, but sometimes it's hard to explain what exactly that is. So one of the things that we're trying to do as well, with having people like Carly, who is an influencer, very involved in TikTok, actually come on here, as well as yourself, is these are very hardworking business people. And right now, she's actually going through the process of starting a clothing line
Oh,
because
cool.
that's what her TikTok people wanted.
Yeah.
And it's something that you never know what you could be up to next, right?
100%. You never, like, that's the thing about like saying yes and trying new things, you know, you like literally never know like when your next opportunity is around the corner. And so if you work hard and you put yourself out there, then you can accept those things, right?
For sure. So is there anything kind of that you're allowed to talk about that's maybe kind of on the down low that you've been working on? Besides keeping
Okay, let
saving
me,
for
I need
school.
to think about, that for like one half a second, just to make sure I don't like get in mega serious
What
trouble.
doesn't have an NDA? That's
I think literally everything I do, unfortunately, has an NDA, but like I can say, you know, like in the past 5 years, I've worked on games that have been unannounced. I've worked on games that people know are coming. I've also done like a few cool, I can talk about like umbrella things I've done that are cool. So like, you know,
100%.
different things that I've done is I've gone to like game releases and game previews. And that is really fun because it's like a pre-release party. So like I went to the Bungie 2, like the Destiny 2 Bungie reveal, and it was a red carpet event where they like reveal Destiny 2, and it was like the coolest thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was like literally the coolest thing. I've never felt so cool in my whole life. It was unbelievable. They had like massive statues and things hanging from the roof. And like, there was like the who's who of everybody, including like, I met like the in and out, like, I don't know if it was the CEO or the CFO who, like just like the most random people, like, you know, Blizzard execs, like just like the neatest people. And all my friends were there. Like that was amazing. I've also got to do things where like you go and you work on the game in like kind of its final stages, and that's been really interesting as well. Like I really enjoy getting to say like, hey, I think that this could benefit if you just change this thing about it. So an example of that would be like an Anthem when you're getting resources. I was like, you know, it should either like give two if there's two people there, or refresh, or like, you know what I mean? Because as it is right now, we both go and we don't know who gets it. So that's an example of something where like I was like, hey, I think you should change this, and then they changed it, and I was like, I did that, you know, which is cool because like I'm not a dev and I would never claim to do anything that they do, because what they do to me is like mystical and magical. I don't quite understand exactly how they make that happen, but to like to be able to help and improve something and then like see it happen, I was like, oh, look, I did that. Look at that. And then some other cool things I've done are like, oh, I love it too when I get to go and there's like a good example would be like a new Apex map. So then we like fly to LA and we play the Apex map and we capture, and then we release our capture before the map. Like it makes you feel really cool. All your friends are there. Like there's snacks. You know, I'm always like, are there snacks? Because if there's not snacks, I'm not coming. So, you know, I feel like my name is a really good reminder, because I'm like, are you feeding us? You know, like, is there something? Like, when is the break? Recently I was playing I was doing something and I was like, is there a snack break? Like, did you put a time in here? And they were like, we're not taking a break. And I was like, why? No. I need a break.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. So those have been some really cool, just like a variety of different types of things I've done that have been like really, really cool. And yeah, it's really cool to experience those things and to hear about them, and to like to play a different role is really, really awesome. And, you know, to represent your community and what they stand for is also really, really exciting and an honor, truly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, you know, you grow up here, you know, BioWare's here. Now there's more, but living here, you're like, we're a little bit more exposed to game culture, having seen EA take over BioWare in our time here.
Mm-hmm.
And it still doesn't quite feel accessible sometimes, right? And so then when you're standing there in front of people like In and Out, who would have ever thought, because they don't even have them in Eastern US, let alone in Canada, right?
I know, it was really interesting. I was like, this is fascinating.
In that situation, is that kind of like a fake it till you make it thing, where you're just like, just be positive, just act like you know what you're talking about?
You know what? I don't know. I feel like maybe that's kind of relatable to imposter syndrome, and I'm lucky to like have not felt that way. But I think for me, on the last kind of interview I did, somebody asked me like how I stayed so humble. And I was like, well, I just don't think I'm that big of a deal. Okay. Like there are some massive streamers here. There are some massive streamers. Like my friends are like celebrities, you know, they're massive. They're like, you know, they're just these huge people on Twitch with these huge followings. And I'm just like doing my thing with my community. And I think maybe that helps because when I meet people who I think who I look up to or I'm amazing, I'm just like, I'm Snackless and it's so great to meet you. I teach kindergarten and I like snacks, you know, and like that's just who I am. And I think I'm just okay with that. I think part of that also comes with being okay with being a part-time streamer, you know, because I'm like, I'm working at my own pace and I'm okay with that. And for a long time, it was really hard to be okay with that. So it's really nice to be in a place where I'm like, I love what I do in so many areas of my life. And I just want to sow that love into other people.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. It's a lot of people never get the chance to do half of what you do, but you put so much into it. And I think like we were talking about with that back end, really being a part-time streamer is a full-time job. And you have a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Even just like, you know, for something as small as like one charity event, you know, that like I put on. So for example, in like May, it's St. Jude Play Live. So like all month we fundraise for St. Jude Play Live. And I was a part-time streamer. So I'm like, okay, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're going to do these special things. And this is what we're going to do. And this is what I'm going to buy. And like a secret is that like behind me for like my next charity event, I got this, like, you know how you decorate a gingerbread house? I found like a Halloween house and I was like, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? So it's so much planning. Like it's crazy. You know, one of my friends, she streams Just Dance. And so she planned like every milestone was like a new outfit for like months. So you have to plan these things completely. Like, you know what I mean? Even for me in December, I do something called like 12 days of Snackless. And so then it was like, I have to plan like a bajillion presents ahead of time, order them, plan the crafts, you know, it's so, I think the teacher side of me really enjoys that and like enjoys mixing together, but it requires a lot of organization. You know, even if something simple as, you know, my chat being like, hey, we want a new emo. I'm like, okay, so I have to like check if my graphic design artist is accepting commissions. If they're not, I have to beg them because I'm like a regular client. Then I have to get on the waiting list. Then I have to wait. Then I have to place the order. Then I get the draft, approve the draft, get the color, approve the color. You know, just to like 4 months later be like, hey, we have the emote, and everybody's like, hooray! You know, you don't see like the 4 months of work that go into stuff, and that's just like one emote. Like forget like, you know, an overhaul or a t-shirt or like, you know, so no, I don't think people quite know the background of that, but truly, I always say this too, like I would never claim to know what someone else's job is unless I've done it, you know? So I think people always like to, you know, with jobs with easy titles like doctor, teacher, lawyer, people seem to like think they know what those people do for a job, and they don't. You know, people have no idea what I actually do as a teacher. It's kind of like that meme where it's like, what people think I do, what I actually do. It's kind of like that. And so I feel like streaming is just another thing like that. You know, it's just because maybe it seems more accessible than just like being a lawyer or a doctor, right? But truly, unless you've done someone's job, you really don't know what goes into it. And so I always like to look at those perspectives from like a learning place, you know, like tell me about your job, tell me what you have to do, like tell me about those challenges and tell me about the exciting parts, you know. And I think that's like the educator in me, I think, because it's like I'm going to teach them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for even taking this time for us. I know it is back to school, so
yeah,
100% you are very, very busy. So I want to thank you so much for taking even just this time for us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Like I said, I really try to say yes. And, you know, just like to summarize that, I'm not saying you should say yes all the time. You know, if something does not work out, if it doesn't fit in your schedule, or if you don't feel comfortable, or it's just not, like, it's okay. I just think that when you can say yes, even in those times where you're like, oh, I'm a bit uncomfortable, or I have to shuffle things, like, that's okay. You know, that's a moment of growth when you have to change things and rearrange things a little bit to make something fit. Like, that's kind of more what I'm coming from than just being like, always do what people ask you to do.
For sure. I think we weren't expecting you to start jumping off of stuff upon our request or anything like that. But I don't know about the other people here, but at least I wasn't. But I do want to thank you again so much, especially because I really wanted to end this series with something that really impacts our community without people knowing. Like I said,
Yes.
with all the work that you've done with charity, with Make-A-Wish, with all of these things, like it has done a lot of work for a lot of people. And even just showing up to the Edmonton community meetup events, it inspires people to see a partner show up. And I think
Actually, yeah, I will say not a lot of people who have a larger following are able to join, and whether that's their schedule or they have a family, or a lot of people say they live in Edmonton but they don't actually, because it's easier to say for the capital and for our safety sake as well. So I think when there's only me and Tom for partners streamers, I think it is inspiring. It's like when I see my friends, even though they're my friends and they're a big deal, it's exciting for me to see them. It's inspiring to see what they're doing and that they take time to come. And I think that's really important to me. And I love going to our local events. I love our local community, and I love sharing my perspective on things and sewing into people who are growing, encouraging them, telling them they can do it. I love getting to play that role. So it's been lovely. It's been lovely to be a part of those events put on by Bex.
Mm-hmm. I mean, who would have thought that a teacher would want to be a mentor as well?
Yeah, I don't know how I stumbled into these roles, but I just love them both so much, and I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you again on behalf of Homestead for helping us out today with giving us a little bit of insight into what you do. And obviously, we'll be talking with you more. You're always welcome to join us at anything. If you need a boardroom, we've got one. But
thank you.
We'll definitely keep in touch with you. And if you want to check out Snackless, obviously, we've got some social media to plug, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on twitch.tv/snackless. And if you're looking to follow me on any of my social media platforms, you can look at I Am Snackless on Instagram or on Twitter.
Yeah, obviously for some great quality things, as well as if you are international, you get to see a little bit more Canadian snacks as well. I always love to see those posts. So thank you again so much. And I hope that everybody has an absolutely fabulous day and enjoy back to school.
Thank you so much. Yeah, fingers crossed for a smooth start.
Always for you. All right. Thank you again.